The identity of Texas is inextricably linked to the cowboy because of the role they play in the state's history. So I want you to take a moment right now and close your eyes if you're not driving and imagine in your mind a cowboy. So what do you see? Something like a John Wayne type character from an old Western, perhaps? Well, you might want to consider an image along the lines of Danny Glover's Joshua Dietz from Lonesome Dove. That's because historians estimate as many as 1 in 4 cowboys were black, a fact that's often overlooked in our popular narrative about the Wild West. It's a history Kati Nojambottom has written about for Smithsonian Magazine. Kati, welcome to The Standard.
Thank you for having me.
So, 1 in 4 the cowboys were black. Of what time period would that be?
So we're talking about the late 19th century. This was really when people were settling the American West and when the cattle drives were at their height.
Where does this story of African-American cowboys begin, though?
Well, that's a very good question. It begins possibly in a few places. There isn't a definitive place. But most cowboys, of course, were in Texas. That's where the cattle industry was largest and where cattle ranches were. So a lot of those cowboys were working in Texas and then on the trails leading up into the northern states.
And you write that many of these cowboys were freed slaves.
Yes, that's true.
What was the appeal of being a cowboy to a freed slave?
Well, being a cowboy was one of the best jobs that a lot of African Americans on the frontier could have as freed slaves. Other jobs would have included things like Pullman porters, but for cowboys, it was sort of an independent job, but they also had the opportunity to work on teams, and they had a lot more equality, actually, than a lot of African Americans of the era.
Really? Yeah, I was imagining they must have had to face a lot of racism, but you note that there was a certain amount of respect and equality that their crews had that kind of defied racial norms for the time.
Right, it certainly did. It was a dangerous job, as some of my sources who are true experts on this told me. When you're in a dangerous situation, you don't really have time to sort out who's white or who's black. You just have to depend on your friends to protect you.
What were some of the unique challenges they faced being black cowboys, so to speak?
Sure. Well, as black cowboys, when they were on the trails, if they were trying to stay in hotels or eat at restaurants, they were frequently barred from that because they were African Americans, and it was the late 19th century when, of course, segregation was still an issue. But among the teams and among the other cowboys, it seems that there was quite a bit of equality and respect for each other on the trail. But overall, the cowboys faced many dangerous situations, which are pretty well documented in a lot of our popular culture.
And then they had troubles as cowboys became less necessary over time.
Yes, as cowboys became less necessary with the onset of new technologies and the railroads coming in that could transport cattle, African-American cowboys had to find other jobs that would allow them to still have a livelihood, but they were less exciting, less adventurous than life on the range.
When it comes to popular culture, they are quite underrepresented, wouldn't you say?
I would say so.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think, you could look at any industry. We just saw Hidden Figures, that film, blow up, and I think you could argue that the African-American cowboys are really the hidden figures of the Western frontier.
But they didn't make it into the movies as much because there's obviously a history of racism that goes a lot deeper than...
Exactly, precisely.
Yeah. What got you interested in this, Kati?
Well, I am from the state of Texas. I'm from West Texas in El Paso, and I am African-American myself, and I came across this statistic actually several years ago about 1 in 4 cowboys being black, and of course I had not heard that story myself, and I thought it was an interesting comment, so I did some reading, found some books, and really there's a lot of information on this out there if you're looking for it.
Do you wish you were exposed to this fact maybe at a younger age growing up in West Texas as an African-American?
I sure do. I actually have a pair of cowboy boots that I'm proud to sport, but I didn't realize that this was something that was a part of my own history.
Of course, today there are still African-American cowboys, right? And you're saying particularly in the rodeo industry.
Yes, that's true. Cleo Hearn is an African American cowboy who started a rodeo called the Cowboys of Color Rodeo, and he's really trying to get more people of color, both African Americans and Latinos, and many other ethnicities, to get in on this culture and this sport. And they perform at different rodeos around Texas in particular, and it's still a very lively thing today.
Kati Nojambottom is a staff writer for Smithsonian Magazine. You can find a link to her story, The Lesser Known History of African American Cowboys.
Please like and share if you find the video content interesting and useful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment below so as not to miss the upcoming interesting videos. Thanks for watching.